Hi, this is Carrie, Christ-centered counselor and life coach with Promised Coaching, and I want to talk a little bit about family systems and what a dysfunctional, unhealthy family system looks like. And this can involve narcissism, this can involve all sorts of personality types and disorders within the family system. It could be a range from one or both parents having these issues, or one or the other having these issues, even a child having these issues. And one thing that I want to address before I get into this is that in most cases, children don't grow up becoming codependent or narcissistic or having serious personality disorders without the parents or caretakers or environment that they're in playing a major role in them developing these behavioral issues. And usually, where personality disorders reside, narcissism also exists. So that's really important to talk about. So in this video, I'm going to share a narcissistic family system, and just want you to understand that that falls under the umbrella, or is the umbrella, so to speak, over a lot of other issues that can be present in the family system, such as personality disorders or other behavioral issues. So one dynamic can be that either the mother or the father is narcissistic, or that both parents are narcissistic. Another dynamic could be that there is a single child and one or both of the parents is narcissistic, and the single child is so favored and lacks skills of empathy and learning how to connect and attach properly emotionally to other people, because the relationship with the parents becomes so enmeshed, and that child ends up being very much of like a golden child and having like golden child entitled mentality. This can also look like the single child being treated in a dysfunctional way where the parents weren't planning to have the child. Maybe this child was somewhat of what the parents referred to as a mistake. And then that can also be a really unhealthy, toxic dynamic. The other dynamic would be where there's multiple children, and one of the children is a golden child and one of them is the scapegoat. There can be more than one child that is a scapegoat, but in most cases, it's typically one child that the responsibility of all of the family dysfunctions ends up falling and being placed into the lap of that scapegoated child. And then in the cases where there's 3 or more children, this can include a child that is what I consider to be like the mediator, the one who's constantly trying to keep everyone happy and making sure that the scapegoated child is being fairly treated and feels compassion and sorrow for the scapegoated child, but then is also trying to still maintain unity with the golden child and the narcissistic parent or parents as well. So the mediator child ends up going through a whole lot of taking on the family issues, and even just as much as the scapegoated child is having to carry, the mediator child can have the burden of carrying as well, along with the guilt of feeling bad for the scapegoated child and carrying guilt with them into adulthood about the family dynamic and how the scapegoated child was treated, and feeling like they could have done more or they should have done more to help the scapegoated child. And so you see how this is just such a toxic, dysfunctional web that these family systems can be. And what happens when you end up not addressing and recognizing these issues as you go into your adolescence, it follows you into your adult relationships, and not just your intimate relationships, but your relationships with your children, your relationships with coworkers, with friends, and the continued dysfunctional relationships that you have with your family members, with the family members that you grew up in this environment with. So, I want to explain how you can begin to detach and heal and set healthy boundaries with the narcissistic family system. And you're already watching this video, so I assume that you've had some awareness of what's been going on in the family and are able to kind of put more of a finger on things and dysfunctions. And you could be very new at this and just still learning about how this is affecting you now in your life and what to do about it. And so this is the place to gain more of that information from and learn how you can navigate through it moving forward. So now that I've shared some of the different family dynamics of a narcissistic system, I want you to identify some of the dysfunctions that have taken place within your family system. And I want you to go back to childhood and list out, maybe if you were the scapegoated child, or if you were the mediator child, or the golden child that is trying to figure out how to shift things into a different, healthier direction. And the golden child is very capable of doing this. Oftentimes, the golden child kind of gets picked on in some of these videos on narcissism. I think that there are golden children that grow up and they realize that this was an unfair, toxic system. And they can oftentimes be the ones to really create a drastic change within the family unit because they're more respected, they're looked at more highly. And so that can be a huge game changer. So I actually really encourage those who grew up as the golden child to bring awareness to this, to their family systems, because when a scapegoated child they continue to be scapegoated, they continue to be gaslit by the family and blamed and all of those things. So when the golden child can actually take a stance and say, I've noticed these dysfunctional patterns. I don't think it's really fair that these behaviors have taken place, and this is what I'm not okay with. And when they can actually set healthy boundaries in the family system to create a shift, that can be so powerful. So I really want to bring some light to that because, again, that can really be a game changer in changing things in a narcissistic family. The mediator child also has a strong position in this, not quite as strong as the golden child might, but they do next have a powerful position to take in standing up against the dysfunction in a family system and standing up for the scapegoated child as well. So if you are any of these children, it's really important, especially if you are now an adult, to begin setting healthy boundaries. So first, once you've identified what a lot of these dynamics and the issues have been in the family system, you then want to look at what boundaries you need to put in place. And the boundaries that you want to set first are going to be for you, okay? So whenever you set a boundary, it's going to involve what you are not okay with, what you are not going to accept, how you are going to handle a certain situation or circumstance when it arises. So these boundaries are specifically for you. The next thing that you're going to do after setting these boundaries, after writing it out, really thinking about it, praying about it, writing it out, so that way you're prepared. Preparation is key to most everything. So you want to prepare yourself on how you're going to implement your boundaries, what those boundaries are going to be, and when those boundaries will be implemented. After that, you're going to think about what the consequences will be for the family or the person in the family, whoever it is that can be a disruption or toxic to the family or has these behavioral issues, whether it's one or more people, what the consequences are going to be for that person or persons in the family if they do not respect your boundary. Because narcissistic people don't tend to respect boundaries. And the only thing that they will respond to are consequences. So, this is crucial in partnership with setting those healthy boundaries. Because if you have boundaries in place, but you don't know how to implement them, or you implement them, but then there's not a consequence to follow if they don't respect your boundary, then change is not going to happen. So it's really important to discover what those consequences are going to be, if they're appropriate to the boundary and to the behavior, meaning the consequence should be severe enough to where it's going to impact them, but not too severe to where the punishment doesn't fit the crime, so to speak, and then it ends up backfiring and it can cause a lot of other issues. And you know what? Sometimes that can happen. Sometimes you can set a consequence that's a little bit harsher than what the behavioral pattern or the behavioral issue was. And that can very much be a trauma response. The scapegoated child can often do this, actually. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just part of healing. You're learning how to exercise and express your boundaries and assert yourself in a healthy way. And because you have learned to suppress or oppress those feelings and emotions, it's something that's going to take practice. So don't be hard on yourself if your consequences or your reaction to the boundary crossing might be a little extreme. That's completely normal and actually healthy. And next time you can just prepare yourself, okay, I'm not going to allow them to have that much control and power over me and my reactions and my emotions. So I'm going to handle it this way next time. And it could be just completely removing yourself from the situation, taking a break from the family for a while, whatever that period of time looks like, and just saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to do for me, and continuing to practice those measures of healthy boundary setting and consequences to any boundary crossing moving forward. And as you practice this, it's going to get easier and easier for you to do this. And it's going to be easier for you to discern what a healthy boundary looks like and what a healthy consequence looks like. So I encourage you to keep doing this, even though you feel like you're not doing it perfectly. Perfection is not the answer. And you may have had this impressed onto you from your narcissistic family to be perfect, or being chronically criticized. And so you're a lot more critical of yourself because of the way that you were raised. And so that constant self-criticism is making you feel like you're not doing a sufficient job. I want you to practice not doing that to yourself, because as I said, you are learning in this process. And the more you do it, even as imperfectly as you do it, you will start to see a change. And if it's not a change in your family and their behavior towards you, it's going to be a change in you. And that is the most powerful thing that can happen when you begin to practice these tools with a narcissistic family system. It teaches you how to love yourself better, how to be more of yourself in a whole state rather than a half state, or having to suppress who you are and make yourself small to appease the family. Those things are habits that I want you to break free from. So again, you might not gain the acceptance from the family. You might not gain that love and reciprocation in non-judgmental behavior or critical behavior of them, but you are going to learn how to love yourself more wholly and how to have healthier relationships in your life because of it, including the relationship you have with yourself and with God. Those are just a few tools that you can use to implement in your narcissistic family system. I hope that helps, and I would love to hear from you. If you have any experiences that you would like to share about your narcissistic family system, I would love to hear about it, and any tools that you've used that have helped you in setting healthy boundaries and consequences. And if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel. Take care.